Hi, so for our read aloud work today, we've been talking about envisioning, which is when you make a mental image in your mind. And we know that envisioning in expository nonfiction is a little bit different when envisioning from narrative nonfiction or even fiction, where those types of stories, you kind of can picture characters in your head and setting. But expository, really, those pictures are going to look like maybe boxes and bullets, or sometimes they can look like a diagram with labels, and other times it also can look like a timeline. So today I want to show you how, as I'm reading our expository text about penguins, how I create this mental image in my mind, and then I jot it down so that I can remember this important information. So one of the things that you should ask yourself before you actually, while you're envisioning actually, is you think about what's the important information here that I want to remember. And then maybe like what type of mental sketch can I make to hold on to this important information. And then when you're done, you can actually do a quick sketch on the paper. And what I like to do is this last part. How can you add a caption or a sentence to explain what you've drawn? Because that'll help you kind of check to make sure that you understand the information. So I want to show you how I do that. So this is my Penguins text by Bobby Kalman, and I took a look at the section called Baby Penguins. And so it says baby penguins are called chicks or hatchlings, and most female penguins have 1 or 2 chicks each year. Penguins are good parents. Both mother and father penguins look after their eggs and chicks. Parents care for their babies until they're able to hunt for themselves. They also protect the chicks from enemies or harsh weather. And then I start reading a lot of the captions underneath these real photographs. Parents take turns brooding their egg. They guard the egg and keep it warm. Several weeks later, the chick hatches. The chick breaks a small hole with its egg tooth, a small sharp bump on the tip of its beak. The egg tooth will fall off after a few days. The chick cracks the egg around the middle and pushes the halves apart with its feet. It takes up to 2 days to get out of the egg. And then lastly, the chick pecks at the bottom of its parent's beak to say, "Feed me." The parent then brings up or regurgitates food for the chick. So as I was reading this information, in order to hold on, I felt like what was important is it was kind of telling me like what happens, the events that happen as a chick is born. And so in my mind, I was saying, well, what type of sketch am I seeing? Well, I was seeing a timeline. So I want to show you what I drew here from my notes, because that's what I was really picturing in my mind. So here's my book, and here's my timeline. And as you can see, in my timeline, I drew the timeline, and then like some important events I wanted to remember. The parents keep the egg warm, the egg cracks open, it comes out, and then the parents take good care of it. But I also wanted to include a sentence in my own words to make sure I understood what I was reading. Penguin parents take really great care of the young. So one of the other things is when you go back into the progression, it says like you draw that mental image, but also when you go into a different text, you can add on to it. So here's another penguin book. This one is called Penguins. And I turned to the same subtopic. So I looked in the chapter, the table of contents, and I said, well, where would I find more information about the subtopic about baby penguins? Or this title is called Baby Chicks. So I'm going to read, and I'm going to say, well, what am I learning new in this part that I can add on to my mental image? In mid-January, it's time for the king penguin's eggs to hatch. A chick takes about 3 days to break through the thick shell. Well, I kind of know that already from my sketch. Nestled in the warmth of their parents' brood pouch, the chick is protected from the icy ground. 1 week after its spawn, the chick peeks out for the first time into the outside world. The chick is covered with delicate grayish down that gives way to a dark brown coat after 3 weeks. So I feel like the other book didn't talk about this, but that's something I might want to add on, that they have this brown coat, and here's a nice picture of that coat. A chick's down feathers are not waterproof, so chicks cannot find food by themselves. They have to wait for their parents, who take turns hunting for food and feeding their chicks. When the adult penguin returns to the colony, it regurgitates a mixture of pre-digested fish that it has stored in its throat. The chick swallows the mixture. The chicks have to gain weight as soon as possible so they can survive in the harsh climate. And then I want to take a look at some of the captions here. Cool. So now I'm like, okay, well, I had some of this information already on my timeline. Sorry. And now I'm going to add on to it. Well, that second book, it kind of talked a little bit more about their eggs. So I want to add on their grayish down. I want to add that. So chicks have brown or grayish down. Okay, so do you see how I added on to that mental image? So as you read, I want you to envision how you might not take notes. Ask yourself, what's important information here? How could I see that in my mind? And then transfer it onto paper.